with roots dating back to the Iron Age, serving as an ancient capital of East Anglia. The history of the market town of Thetford in Norfolk paints a fascinatingly vivid picture of English conflict and strife, with strokes of Viking raiding, Norman conquest, and religious persecution. Thetford's turbulent past may go some way to explaining its most infamous hauntings. The ruins of Thetford Priory are impressive both in its historical significance and sheer size of the stone remnants. Founded in the early 12th century, it stood for 400 years as one of the most influential monasteries in East Anglia. As a result, it was one of the last monasteries to be suppressed by Henry VIII in 1540, after which it was used as a house for another 200 years, explaining the various modifications to the building. By around the 1820s, the building had become derelict and was left to ruin. Today all that remains is the stone foundations and a few discernible features, as well as the occasional echo of the ground's past life. Reports of hauntings here go back as far as the 1930s, when the chanting monks, as they've been coined, were first heard uttering their ghostly Latin verses, ringing out through what's left of their ruined monastery. Witnesses have since seen ghostly monks descending staircases that no longer exist and wandering through their once hallowed grounds. An account from 1992 tells of a group of teens terrified by a figure in a dark hooded robe rushing past them, before he and the sound of his jangling keys vanished before them. In the 1400s, Warren Lodge served as protection for hunting parties and the Prior's gamekeeper from armed poachers that were known to frequent these woods. Even today it sits as a defensive tower house with metre-thick walls and loop windows, keeping any unwanted visitors at arm's length. The building was later repurposed by Warreners to incorporate the building into a farmhouse, using the lower floors of the lodge to store their harvest of cold rabbits. The farmhouse was eventually abandoned in the wake of a devastating fire, leaving behind only the original tower, and possibly some ghostly residents. Wandering the grounds of the lodge is the spectre of a sickly leper that's said to belong to a colony dated to the Middle Ages. Cloaked in blue with black holes where you'd expect eyes and a mouth, accounts describe a terrifyingly territorial spirit, watching from the windows and frantically chasing those that dare approach, all whilst letting out guttural shrieks and moans of pain and anger. The second spectre associated with the lodge is that of a spectral rabbit with eyes glowing a fiery red. Seen to be guarding the doorway and often reported in conjunction with our friendly leper. Once spotted, it may just be too late, as this apparition is an omen of death. Though it takes its name from the nearby nunnery of St George, there are no nuns to be found here. This rather unassuming bridge crossing the Little Ouse and the River Thet is notorious for the ghost of a young boy, whose apparition may offer some hints into his untimely demise. The year is 1566, and a 5-year-old Lord George Dacre attempts to clamber onto the back of his wooden horse. Struggling to pull himself up, a supporting pin in the horse's leg gives way, striking the young lord in the head and killing him instantly. Little George's spirit is known to ride up and down the road that crosses the bridge on the very rocking horse that cut his life short. The bridge was renowned locally for its paranormal activity, actually calling for an exorcism. A pound of candles were thrown into the river with the command that the spirit would be banished until they were burned in their entirety. It's debated whether the phantom of George was successfully moved on, as reports persist even today of the little boy and his horse. Thetford is a wonderful example of how ghost stories provide us today with a link to our country's rich and often tumultuous past, triggering the imagination as to how these remnants would have once appeared, and reminding us of the people at the centre of these stories.